Hi everyone. Well, here we are outside of Nautilus Aviation at the Cairns airport. And guess where we're going? We are going on a helicopter ride to MtMulligan Luxury Lodge. We're going to be out there for 3 nights and 4 days of what we hope will be an amazing outback adventure. Okay, let's go.
We have just departed from Cairns International Airport and we are on our way to MtMulligan Lodge in the Australian Outback. Making a left turn towards the west, looking at the McAllister Ranges, which forms part of the Great Dividing Range, and following the well-known Barron River and the Barron Gorge. Looking towards the northern beaches of Cairns, we see Double Island, which is basking in the Coral Sea and is also part of the Australian Great Barrier Reef. We'll be overflying a small township of Caravonica and also Lake Placid. Making our way overflying the plateau of the Atherton Tablelands, which has an average elevation of approximately 3,000 feet. For the last few weeks we have been having bushfires on the Tablelands, and is today in our path to MtMulligan. Flying over the top, considering the existing cloud ceiling, is definitely not an option. Flight service has cleared us to fly under the smoke at a safe altitude of 500 feet above ground level. The terrain between Mareeba and MtMulligan is very rugged, with only one access road, and it is suggested that you take your four-wheel drive and just leave your own car at home. Not so far away, we're actually amazed by the green vegetation. On approach to the lodge comes in view the massive escarpment of MtMulligan. Overflying the derelict old township of MtMulligan, we are now on descent to the lodge. And you can see the accommodation units on the right hand side and the main lodge in the background. You can also see the solar panels on the left hand side there, and since there is no mains power, the whole property is powered by solar power and batteries. On arrival, we were greeted by the managers, Sam and his partner, and with luggage in tow and onto an ATV, which brought us to the lodge. The 7-seater helicopter also catered for 2 other families on our trip from Cairns to MtMulligan, and with only 6 people, we have tonight the running of the lodge to ourselves. The helicopter pad is only a stone throw away from the main lodge, and together with champagne on arrival and a very warm welcome greeting, we had already found our way and felt very much like home.
How nice is this?
MtMulligan Lodge is just one of the high-end properties owned by the Morris family, who also owns Orpheus Island and also the Daintree Lodge, also here in far north Queensland. Property is a current working cattle station with an area of 28,000 hectares. The lodge opened in April 2020 and has accommodation, but only for 16 people. A high percentage of the main building was built from recycled timber, namely from massive pylons that came from the old pier in Piermont in Sydney. There are also many architectural features, such as the towering chimney built with river rocks. Extensive use of Queensland local timbers with the walls in solid red gum and floor in spotted gum make this such a unique property for all of us to enjoy. As part of the deck pavilion, there is also an infinity pool where you can have an early morning dip before you're heading off for breakfast. Large opening timber doors open onto a deck that is used for your breakfast and for your lunch. And with the background of the weir is stocked with barramundi, and fishing is allowed. Fishing rods and lures are provided by the lodge, and should you catch a barramundi, you can take that to the kitchen and the chef will cook it up for you for tonight's feast. Next to the pavilion is a fire pit which comes to life at 5 o'clock on your first night. There they serve canapes and together with your beer, wine or champagne of your choice. The other thing that's provided by the lodge is stand-up kayaks. So you can use those on the weir, so if you feel like an hour or so on the water, or perhaps you would just like to roam around the beautiful gardens that surrounds the pavilion. Closely situated to the lodge is the accommodation, which caters for a maximum of only 15 guests and has 3 types of accommodation. The Outback room is perfect for those travelling individually, and the Outback suite with adjoining lounge room, ensuite and bathroom in the most luxurious settings. Every room has an outdoor private deck and a veranda overlooking the eucalyptus forest and weir, and of course you've got the best views of MtMulligan escarpment as well. The weir next to the lodge collects water from the nearby escarpment and is totally sustainable. It also provides water for the efficient running of the lodge and also has recyclable facilities. Looking out from your room, you'll find the typical Australian outback bush setting with its lush eucalyptus trees. There are many species of wildlife such as birds, mammals, insects and reptiles. You'll find amphibians such as frogs and cane toads. You can also come across the findings of an occasional snake such as the coastal taipan or venomous death adder. While at our stay, we noticed wallabies freely roaming their habitat and, if lucky, come across the face-to-face with an echidna. And what's a pond without duckies? We've got to have duckies, haven't we? We also experience the bird song every morning at daybreak for 1 hour. From 126 known species of birds that live in the area here, birdsong comes to life every morning at daybreak, and then the sound resonates against the face of the limestone escarpment, echoing through the whole valley. The sound is absolutely amazing.
Hold on, here's the cow group. Whoa.
On the second day, there is an AVT tour to MtMulligan Old Township, the coal mine and the cemetery.
So I'd like to give a bit more context to the area.
The ATVs are all terrain vehicles and they are provided by the lodge. And of course you can drive those yourself. It's a vehicle made for two. Our tour guide Phoenix is showing us the old hospital, which is now used for staff accommodation. There's still plenty of remnants and rustic relics in town. There are remnants of the old power station, the bathhouse and the brick kiln. And so does the mine's manager's rusty tin shed. It is quite an eerie feeling. It's very quiet here. Walking through these remnants and leftovers, thinking that it was a vibrant town with 300 people, and then suddenly tragedy struck, and in a matter of minutes history started, now dating back 100 years. The brick kiln still stands freely here today. The fire brick chamber, shaped like a dome, commonly known as a beehive coke oven. Typically 4 metres wide and 2.5 metres high, the roof has a hole, and coal was introduced through that hole to drop down into the chamber and to form a layer of approximately 60 to 90 centimetres deep. Air was then supplied to ignite the coal, removing the volatile matters, and all the exhaust gases were allowed to escape into the atmosphere. Definitely not a very good practice that is accepted here today. And on the side of the road, just a reminder of the 75 people, miners, that died on the 19th of September in 1921 when a violent explosion in the coal mine rocked the township of 300 people. The entrance to the mine is largely caved in, but when you stand in front of it, it's an extraordinary heat that emanates from within. Gives you some idea of the conditions that the miners must have worked in.
They ordered about 60 coffins when the accident happened, and apparently they only had 10 available, and that was in Cairns.
Unfortunately, I was unable to get closer into the mine and start filming because I actually broke my foot here at MtMulligan after arriving about 3 hours from Cairns. So here I am, just filming away. Camera in one hand and hiking stick on my right hand, and there I go. The cemetery is now, of course, barren after 100 years, and all 75 miners have been laid to rest here. And just reading on the headstones, some of them are only as young as 18 years old and 21 years old. Up the road from your accommodation and also the lodge, not very far, you grab your own electric buggy and you go to what we call the Sunset Bar. The Sunset Bar is a tin shed especially built at a prime lookout spot where you can actually see the Narrabulgan ranges. At 5 o'clock, which we call wine o'clock or beer o'clock, we can join all our other guests. And once again, the lodge is serving up beautiful platters of canapes with cheese platters and fruit platters, and also your choice of wine and champagne. On the third day, we grab our ATVs and we set sail on a guided tour with Jack to the Branch. Now, the Branch is located at the very southern end of the mountain and is also a picnic ground where I believe we're going to have a cup of tea. As we travelled to the Branch, we came across the herd of live cattle, and of course you must also understand that this is a live working cattle station of some 28,000 hectares, and also notice that there are troughs of additional food along the way. I was also told that the what you see in the trough is organic matter from the kitchen leftovers, which is then composted and given to the livestock. Jack also pointed out whether we had noticed that the road on the right-hand side was beautifully green, and on the left-hand side it was completely dry. Something to do with the nearby river and floodplains. This is the southern end of the escarpment of Mount Mulligan with its beautiful limestone beauty. Jack, our tour guide, is setting up a typical Australian bush experience with a cup of tea in the bush.
Yeah, he's getting better. Can't ride me.
He's actually making a cup of coffee, and he's setting up a percolator on a little primus. And the coffee beans, of course, that he's using are local from, I believe, from Mulligan. This is definitely the Australian way of having a cuppa in the afternoon, picnic baskets and 4 stainless steel cups. And what an end to the day. This lady is preparing scones with beautiful raspberry jam and a great big dollop of beautiful cream. Because of my broken foot, Jack actually invited us, Katie and myself, to drive the ATV and take us back to the lodge and have a look, and that's what we've got.
Yeah.
We have come to the end of our adventures here at Mount Mulligan. We've spent 3 days, 3 nights and 4 days at this most beautiful place. The service, the management and all the staff are absolutely fabulous. My rating, 5.5 stars or maybe more. This has been a most wonderful, different experience, and the other thing is you can go by road or you can take the helicopter. That's exactly what we're doing now. We're on our way back to Cairns. Today on our way back we are going west, Outback, towards Mariba and over the top of the tablelands, and then on to Stony Creek and the Barron Gorge, and then back again along the McAllister Ranges. Today we don't have fires. They've been water bombing for the last few days, so we do have a clear flight back to Cairns. We can pick up the greater city of Cairns in the distance. The trip is only taking us about 35 minutes from Mount Mulligan to Cairns Airport. Overflying Brinsmead and then on to Stratford and Erroglan, where we'll be making a left-hand turn onto runway 33 because we do have a northerly wind today. Cairns itself is one of the most influential cities in Australia, and is away from the hustle and bustle from the southern cities, and has been catering to the tourist industry for more than 35 years. The Cairns International Airport opened in 1984, and today it has domestic direct flights to every capital city on the mainland. This has been a most wonderful experience, a little bit different than your normal camping tour. So lucky to live around here, as we have the Great Barrier Reef, and then also the Outback and the Atherton Tablelands right on our doorstep. There's so many other things to explore right here, such as nearby Port Douglas, the pristine northern beaches of Cairns, and then we have Palm Cove, Fitzroy, and the magic of Green Island.